I lied about who I was when role-playing to escape reality. Several years back I was at a bad point in my life. I was 25 at the time and I was dealing with the isolation from the pandemic. My friend group had a falling out, leaving me with no one to talk to or hang out with. When we hung out prior to the falling out, they all had successful careers, relationships, and some even bought homes. Meanwhile, I was making less than half of their salaries and living in a shitty apartment where my rent was gobbling up my income. I compared myself to them and viewed my life as a failure. They made more money, they had partners, I was a virgin at the time and unsure if I was bisexual, turns out I am, they had homes, they had everything and I had nothing. This comparison was wrong of me to do at the time, and did not help my situation. None of this played a role in the falling out, but it did not help me deal with losing my friend group. There was a disagreement among others that created issues and the core group falling apart. Regardless, I had low self-esteem and a low sense of a self-worth. After the friend group fallout, I didn't have anyone to talk to or hang out with. I had several co-workers who I enjoyed hanging out with, but over the pandemic era they all left my company. I was isolated and alone most days. Wake up, drive to work for an hour, work, drive home for an hour, make dinner, watch TV, then go to bed. Rinse and repeat this for every day I work. To make matters worse, I was expecting a raise and didn't get it. I felt like a failure. On top of all of this, I had been diagnosed with several health problems and complications, and I was struggling to live a normal life outside of my required routine. Most of my energy was spent working, and weekends were chores/recovery time. I tried to talk to my friend group about it when the group still existed, but they were grossed out or indifferent. It made me feel alone. I had really bad doctors at the time who didn't do enough to help me, and I think that played a role in my feeling of helplessness. One of them even talked about COVID conspiracies with me unprompted. I should have reported them for that, but I was too depressed to care. All of these issues caused me to feel like this was my life. Doomed to be disabled, alone, and forgotten. The world was starting to open up from the pandemic, and during this time I tried my best to not let this consume me. After the falling out, I tried online dating and going out to meet people. I had matched with people only to end up ghosted, or go on dates where no questions were asked about myself. I met people with similar hobbies only to see they were not interested in me due to disabilities, or they were the type of person I should not surround myself with, drugs, crazy religious, bad political views, etc. After about 4 months of this, I gave up. I don't blame or fault anyone else, but all of these things destroyed my self-worth. I felt like no one wanted me, or cared to even consider me a person or a friend. I should have gone to therapy, but the chronic health problems and doctor's visits were expensive. Any free time I did have was usually spent being depressed, doing my best to barely function and keep my job, that I needed for my health insurance, or going to a doctor that could not help me. All of these issues built up to me spending a lot of time online. I'd either doom scroll, watch videos, or play really easy games. The games I liked were difficult due to health problems. Eventually, when browsing Reddit, I stumbled across a pen pal/erotic roleplay subreddit. I scrolled through some posts and messaged some people interested in their plots. This was where my escape from reality started. I roleplayed with people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. I roleplayed with men and women. It was an escape. This was where things became worse. I would create 2 accounts. One where I was a man, and one where I was a woman. I did this to be able to interact with more people and explore my sexuality and identity. This was wrong of me to do. I know now that I did not do it to be deceptive or mislead people, though I certainly did that. I did it because I wanted to fit in and be desired, despite lying to people. I wanted to explore my sexuality that I was unsure of. I wanted an escape and to be with someone who wanted me in fantasy. I wanted to fill the void that my real life wasn't providing. Most of the encounters would involve chatting, discussing kinks and limits, role-playing with text only, and then moving on to never to see each other again after it was over. Most of them were short fantasies that let me escape my reality and create a world in which I had people interested in me sexually and personally. It was false validation that would eventually end after the scene ended and we parted ways. Because of this, I felt justified in my lies as I felt they had no real impact on anyone. However, there were a couple people who wanted to continue chatting after it was over, and that was where issues arose. I should have cut it off before it started, but I didn't want the void to return. The first was a woman around my age who I ended up chatting with for about a week who thought I was a woman. We'd chat about hobbies, kinks, interests, and more. I finally felt like I had a friend, but it was all based on a lie. Eventually I had to come clean. I told her the truth and apologized to her for lying. She was disappointed and cut off contact shortly after. I don't fault her or blame her. I still feel remorseful for what I did. If you happen to read this, I am sorry for lying to you. It was me who was at fault. Despite this, I continue to roleplay with other people. I am still disappointed in myself that I continued. I eventually chatted with a 20-year-old woman who had very similar kinks to me. We talked about work, hobbies, and our shared kinks. Eventually, I made a serious mistake. We chatted one evening and started to talk about kinks. She was more dominant and I was more submissive in our scenes. She knew I was a man, there was no deception on that front. At one point we discussed me worshipping her feet and I asked her for pictures of them. I never did that to anyone before, and should not have done it to her. I know the memes surrounding feet, but to be serious, asking for pictures of anything is wrong. She felt uncomfortable and didn't want to. I asked again and she stated again that she was not comfortable. I did not ask a third time and tried to apologize. The next time we chatted I apologized, saying it was my fault and that I crossed a line. A couple days after that we stopped chatting, and that was that. I think the reason I asked was for two reasons. The first was that I wanted a connection, I wanted something more than text on a screen. The second was that I was thinking with the wrong head. Neither of these justify my actions, and I was wrong to do this. If you happen to be reading this, I am sorry for making you uncomfortable. It was my fault, and I was wrong for what I did. I should have respected your wishes the first time, and listened to your limits. Near the end of the 8 months of role-playing, I found a new doctor. They were finally able to help me with my chronic conditions. I was in disbelief, as I thought that my life was going to be rendered to me being alone and left behind. The following months I got so much better, it was night and day. I stopped role-playing and started working more on myself. I still have to manage my health issues, but I feel so much more close to normal than I have prior to my diagnosis. During this time I started to go to therapy where I worked on my issues and former actions. I still cringe at what I did, and how I acted and lied to people. My pain did not justify my actions and those who I hurt or mislead. I still struggle to move past them, as I feel they are indicators of me being a terrible and unredeemable person. Regardless, the best I can do is to learn from my mistakes to ensure I never make them again. I still continue to go to therapy for this. To anyone who is in a similar place, I just want to let you know that you are not alone, and that there are healthy ways to deal with your issues. Do not do what I did to escape reality. It doesn't fix your problems or make them go away.